Hi, this is Joseph.
This is David, and welcome to The Definition,
a podcast where we take a topic and explore various perspectives.
because not everything is black and white.
Exploring the depths beyond the definition, hearing opinions from the street, as well as offer our own 2 cents. Ultimately, our goal is to spark your intrigue.
But rest assured, it's always going to be real, relatable, and relaxed. You can also expect us to spice up each episode with a hint of our personal experiences.
Let's get started.
I'm happy with that.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Definition. Joseph, what are we discussing and talking about today?
Fantastic. So our podcast always talks about not everything is black and white. We bring up a topic and we look at the range and spectrum of how that topic can play out. Today, we've got a very interesting topic because no one lives in isolation. Our topic today is neighbors.
Yes. When you shared that idea with me, I laughed. I was like, what a great topic of conversation. We all have a mix of good and negative experiences when it comes to our neighbors.
Yes. There have been TV shows, movies, sitcom series, everything. You could make a million options around the word neighbors and you would not be exhausted. We've had great neighbors, terrible neighbors, neighbors that have saved our lives. Some have gotten married to neighbors, and some have unfortunately had the unfortunate situation of where neighbors have brought them a lot of danger. So today we really want to explore the experience people have had with neighbors. Is there an ideal neighbor you could wish for? Or rather, looking in the mirror, what kind of neighbor are you to the man next door?
Well, you just made it very personal there. So for us to introspectively look at ourselves as what kind of quality do we offer
As a neighbor.
the people living next door to us.
Absolutely. And so today, what is key for us is to understand in this social network that we live in called a community, with things changing around us, what's the role of technology in the kind of relationship you have with your neighbors? We've seen developments where everyone now is on one WhatsApp group and there's a lot of back and forth in it.
Yep.
Is it really a community, or are we living more in isolation versus in the time past?
Yeah, and I think actually a big factor is like what kind of house you live in. Is it an apartment, semi-detached, detached? Do you have walls that, adjoin with your neighbor's house?
Yeah.
I think those kind of things probably intensify
Yes.
your neighbor relationship.
Do you share the same driveway? Do you share the same refuse disposal unit? It's the number of touch points in a way that brings about that kind of relationship,
So starting out, my previous house, we had very young kids, and we shared a wall, semi-detached house with this middle-aged man who lived on his own.
Yeah.
We never, the years that we lived there, we never heard him.
Wow.
Never heard him. So I don't know, was he super quiet, or were the walls very well insulated?
Oh, he was never around.
No doubt he heard our kids screaming all the time in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And yet, what can we do
Tolerance,
as young parents? What can you do when your toddler wakes up at 3 a.m. screaming?
Yeah.
So what's the way to go about it? How do we, should we just tolerate everything, or should we complain about everything? What's your take on
So
it?
growing up, I did live in a block of flats, and block of flats are kind of interesting because whatever the neighbor above you does, sometimes you do the same to the neighbor below you as kids. And so sometimes they are stomping upstairs, you are stomping to the guy downstairs. And it's a difficult space to live in versus if you live in a house where the walls are all content to be yours.
Right.
My experience has been, I've had great neighbors that I could call brothers to a certain extent. And I've had neighbors who have changed over time also. You started off great and then things fizzle away, or you started off very cautious, suspicious about them, and then they turn out to be real great people. They come over when they see a celebration. I give you an example. We like to throw parties as Nigerians, right? And the polite thing to do when you're throwing a party is to go around your neighbors to inform them that a bunch of Nigerians are coming over next weekend, and ask for their tolerance.
Oh, I thought you were going to invite them all.
Well, look, you invite them, but in case they turn you down because for one reason or the other, you still have to ask permission for them to tolerate the noise and make a commitment to when the party is going to end. which never happens. Nigerians never enter that time. But because you're going to live with that neighbor forever. It's like your skin, your skin is going to be with you forever. And you don't want that one day to spoil things around. And we've been lucky. We've had very tolerant neighbors, all except one which I think might watch the podcast, so I wouldn't go into details. But I think that neighborly instinct is something that you carry with you anywhere you go. But sometimes it's not reciprocal.
Okay. So they're having parties and they don't forewarn you.
They don't forewarn you. Or guests at the party take over your own driveway and you can't get into your own house.
Right.
But I think to a certain degree, tolerance is the word though. If that happens once in 2 years, I can live with it.
Yeah, I guess most people would probably agree with that they're willing to put up with antisocial hour noise once or twice a year. I guess it becomes tricky when it's an everyday thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Where your neighbors are just shouting at each other at 2 a.m. every day.
Well, and then there's also that you make an excuse for something you think is a one-off, and over time it becomes a staple.
Right.
Okay, they're going to be loud, it's a one-off, and then because you didn't kick back, you didn't complain, it becomes an every Saturday night affair, and then you're getting into dangerous waters.
I mean, I know of a family who had a little boy who played drums.
Oh.
And drums are loud. Semi-detached house. And the neighbors, the husband worked nights.
Oh.
So you can imagine that very quickly it came to head that this is not okay. And then they stood their ground. They're like, there's nothing wrong with my son playing drums during the day.
Yeah.
I didn't pick your career path.
True.
And it becomes very grey. It becomes like, where's the boundaries of who's right, who's wrong, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable.
So the saying that some things are right by the law, but some things are not right by just common sense.
Right.
So it is right by the law. It's your property. You could play the drums as loud as you want within your property. But just social norm says you have to be considerate. And the things about neighbor is everything really borders around you have to be considerate to the other party.
What's your take on building or not building relationships with your neighbors? Like friendships.
I think it's back to that thing around not everything is black and white. There are pros and there are cons of having close friendship, and friendship is a spectrum again with your neighbors. But I've seen people whose property has been saved by their neighbor,
right,
who've been rescued from fires by their neighbors. And I've also seen people who neighbors have boggled them because the neighbors know when you're not around. I can tell you what I was watching on TV, and this guy said he kept money on the dining table and it was gone. His cigarettes were gone and it kept repeating itself. And he checked all the locks in the house. The locks were good.
Yeah.
No, there was no sign of a break-in, but it kept on going for months.
Yeah.
And then he installs a couple of cameras.
Oh.
Then the first camera footage that came through, he saw a man, but it wasn't clear, who came into his house stealing. And the week after, he was saying, how did that man come in? He repositioned his camera, David, and this guy was coming in through the cat hole in the door. So he puts his hand from the cat hole, gets to the lock, opens the lock, and comes in. Now, the dangerous thing is when he's done, he closes the door and puts his hand back through the cat hole and locks the door.
Nuts. That actually just reminded me that there was a time when I was a little kid that somebody was siphoning petrol out of my mum's car every week. And I know exactly which neighbor. Looking back now, I know exactly which neighbor it was.
Yeah.
And it was a neighbor.
Yeah.
Every week. And the only way to solve it was mum just kept that car low on empty the whole time.
There was
he eventually stopped bothering for the sake of €2
Could
worth.
you imagine?
Crazy, eh?
And that neighbor will wave to your mom in the morning. Hi, neighbor.
Yeah. Good day, Mrs. Patton.
Any gas in your truck, Mrs. Patton?
Just wondering if you're going to the petrol station today or not. And I mean, and he knew she was a single mother.
Could you imagine?
Trying to raise two kids.
He cared less.
So you raise a really interesting prospect that on one hand, neighbors can be a huge blessing. On the other hand, they can be an absolute torture and pain. And the thing about building friendships and relationships is, like, if you start to build a friendship, you invite them over for barbecue, reciprocate, you start to chat, get close, become friendly.
Yeah.
if that relationship either turns sour or you feel like it's plateaued or you feel like it's not something you want anymore, because they still live next to you, it's very hard to kind of roll back that friendship.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a danger. Like I wonder, is it maybe just better by default to keep a certain healthy distance? Pick friends that don't live next door to you.
But what is a healthy distance, though?
Well, yeah, I mean,
do you expect if your neighbor sees your kid trying to cross the road in a dangerous way,
right,
for him or her to intervene?
I would, yeah.
And that's healthy enough.
Yeah.
But is it reciprocal? Does the neighbor expect same from you? Or would he come down and say, stop interfering?
Interesting. Yeah.
So growing up again, the African culture, when you have a child, disciplining a child is the neighbor's, the neighborhood's responsibility. It's not your responsibility alone. So it is expected of me, if I see your son, because you're my neighbor, misbehaving in the shop down the road, because I'm your neighbor, I have earned the right to correct him. That's a cultural sensitivity that surely doesn't happen in the West. In the West, it seems like it is okay for me to look away. What's the expectation?
I think certainly in the West, I would imagine that people would get angry if you tried to discipline their kids in the local corner shop. I would say most people in the West would find that inappropriate.
Yeah.
I'm only guessing.
Yeah.
If we did a poll.
But maybe discipline is not a big word, but just call the person out.
Like if they're stealing something.
Yeah.
Slap him and tell him to go home.
Well, or do you expect me to look away? That's the point. If you and I are neighbors, what's your expectation of me in that situation?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, because you see, what's naturally going to happen is I'm going to impose my standards that I operate within my family onto your kids. And vice versa.
Yes.
And if we have a different understanding, like for some parents, they don't care if their kids throw stones at their car.
Yeah.
They throw stones at my car, I'll shout at them.
Yeah.
But if I shout at them for throwing stones at their car, the parents will come out and go, we don't care. What's your
business? Yeah.
Why are you hassling my kids?
Yeah.
Stop harassing my kids.
It's a touchy one without really defining the boundary of what a neighbor's expectation is or not. Let me give you the typical Irish one. Friday, you bring out your green bin. The bin truck comes, empties your bin and your neighbor's bin.
Yeah.
And you're driving in and the bins are by the road. Do you pull in your bin alone? Do you pull in your bin and your neighbor's bin?
My fear would be if I pull in my neighbor's bin, they'll expect me to do it every week. One time when we were going on holidays, I asked my neighbor, would he put out my bins for me? And if he asked me to do the same, I wouldn't mind doing that. So I guess it really depends on what your level of expectation is. Got an interesting text in which I think illustrates a boundary. New neighbors moved in, came asking for milk. I pointed them to Aldi, which is literally 300 meters away. So,
oh my God,
that was setting a very clear boundary. Do not come ask me for milk.
Oh man,
the shop is down the road.
Oh man,
do you think that's too harsh?
I think that's too harsh. I think that's harsh.
You would have given them.
If I had a spare, I would. Depends on the time of the day, but not to make it a habit. I would reserve that for maybe the third or the fourth time they ask. Right. It reminds me of a story I read of a family who were a bit well off from their neighbors, and the person narrating the story said he remembered his mom always asking him to go to the neighbors to ask for salt.
Right,
and it just wasn't clear to him because he felt the family had well enough to be able to afford salt. Why do you always have to send me to go ask for salt? So one day this man had the courage to ask his mom, why do you send me to go ask the neighbors for salt when I know we have salt at home? And the mom said, I do it sometimes so they can feel good that we are also coming to ask things from them, even though they are not well off. So sometimes those things happen that you go to your neighbors. The psychology around it is different though, but to make your neighbors feel comfortable coming to you to ask. I don't have a problem with my neighbors coming to ask me for salt. Shout out to Thomas. I asked him once to drop me at the airport because my taxi was late and I was running late for my flight, and Thomas did that drive, 25 minutes one way, so 50 minutes Thomas, I owe you one, but that's the kind of neighbor that I appreciate.
Fair play. 100%. But then would it be inappropriate for you to, if there wasn't a taxi planned and you wanted to save 10 quid on airport parking and you asked your neighbor, would he drop you off to the airport?
I think that's inappropriate.
Yeah.
I think for a financial gain, that's inappropriate. But for emergencies, look, neighbors exist for emergencies. You don't plan them, they could happen. But I'm hoping I'm the kind of neighbor that people could rely on in an emergency to say, hey, give me a hand here. Sure. It's water off my back. Sometimes it might be a bit inconveniencing. So for me, the extreme of pointing them to Aldi, that's really, really extreme. There probably is an undertone that we don't know of, but hey, I've got one here.
Go on.
So, neighbor story. This one came in as a message. Said, my husband is a paramedic and he works late and odd hours, comes home at 3 a.m. and our two young neighbors started blaring super loud music. After a few back and forth for them to turn it off, the lads simply ignored my husband. Unfortunately for them, as a paramedic, my husband has some equipment that could make anyone uncomfortable. He pulls out a flashlight with lumens that are illegal and points the flashlight to my neighbor's compound. It felt like the rays of God shining directly on them.
They thought their time had come.
Needless to say, the music was turned off and now we have that flashlight permanently on our porch.
Okay. I mean, that's more intrusive than saying go to Aldi for your milk. Right?
Yes.
I mean, that's pretty, but I get it.
Yeah.
You come home from a long shift, you want to go to sleep and you don't want your neighbors keeping you up.
Yes.
Man, that's tricky.
But that's a typical tit for tat story. Should neighbors get into tit for tat?
I have another one which I want to throw in there from a listener. It's hilarious. We had a group of ladies next door playing very loud music all day, all evening, till midnight.
Yeah.
These are old people, by the way, that wrote this message in. I did not know what to do. I owned a large ram's horn, so decided to blow that. After a few days, they got the message. When I blew it against their wall, they turned the music down.
That is tit for tat 101. Oh, my goodness.
I mean, is that a reality? Is that are these type of scenarios unavoidable, or should there be more formal proceedings where you write letters?
Well, look, that example it makes for uncomfortable neighborliness. What happens the next morning when you come out?
Yeah.
Do you say hello? Do you wave at each other? Do you smile at each other?
It's going to ruin your relationship.
Exactly. So the question is, I think for me, I'd always say to my wife, is it worth it?
Right.
I always like to answer, is it worth it? I've got another neighbor of mine, and I hope he makes a career out of this. He loves football. Okay. He loves Ronaldo over Messi. So backyard, he's always playing football with his dad. I kid you not. In the spring, maybe 3 times a day, his ball is falling over.
Right.
And we are kicking it back to him. But I want to say one thing. He always screams, thank you.
Right.
When the ball lands back in his compound. Now, it might get too much, but at this time, I say to my wife, it's not worth it. The young boy is enjoying himself. It helps my back to go and pick the ball and kick it over. It's exercise for me. So I can tolerate it. I can live with that. Yeah. But maybe some neighbors can't.
Yeah, I think like Jeff Bezos pays a massive fine for having hedges that are too tall for the estate that he lives in. But he doesn't want to cut them because he wants the privacy.
Yeah.
So he would rather pay the fine than to cut them. So I think wealth affords you certain luxuries when it comes to defining your own parameters.
Yeah.
And my feeling on it is, like, I had a neighbor complain to me once about something, and I kind of said to her, politely but firmly, I said, listen, what I'm doing noise-wise is just completely normal.
Yeah.
And I think it's inappropriate that you're complaining about it.
Yeah.
And realistically, unless you have the money to build your mansion in the middle of a field where you're 4 miles away from anybody, you just have to tolerate other humans around you within proximity to you will make some levels of noise. And I think that's a hard reality. It's like, if you really hate sound of neighbors and you can't afford to build a mansion out on your own, then you're kind of snookered.
But to be fair to that woman, there is a limit to what you can tolerate. And because this is a gray area topic, let's be fair, some neighbors will push the button. If you didn't raise your voice the first day and you didn't raise your voice the second day in the guise of tolerating, and that neighbor will continue, then it becomes unfair. Tolerance should not be at the price of living comfortably in your own house. Now, who is the arbiter? Who moderates the extent of tolerance that it becomes a nuisance? No, I don't know if there's anyone though.
Is there legally some sort of like clout that if you call the guards because of antisocial noise at certain antisocial hours, there is something they can do legally?
I wouldn't know.
You haven't made that phone call.
I haven't made the phone call yet. And I mean, some would say it's a civil matter. I think cops would say you guys resolve it.
Right.
But there should be a level of tolerance that becomes unbearable beyond that threshold. Then it should be complaint.
I also lived in Germany for a little while. And in Germany, they're really particular about noise levels during like Sunday afternoons.
Oh yeah, rest.
And days of rest.
Yeah.
They've adhered to it, especially in small villages and stuff,
Yeah.
where nobody will blast loud music
Yeah.
on a Sunday afternoon, for example.
Fair enough.
I think here we don't really have that same sense of.
Speaking of regulations, I'm not sure about this because I could remember I heard this from my wife. So if it's not true, it's onto Herland. That there are certain countries in the Nordics, you are not allowed to flush your toilet at certain times in the night, especially in an apartment or in a hotel building or something where the noise could wake up the neighbor. I need to do my research on that. But that could be an example of government trying to control or moderate to what degree is your neighbor being a nuisance.
Yeah, but I mean, like, very practically, very pragmatically, that's then a choice of, do you want to keep your neighbors happy or do you want to keep your marriage in place? Like, if my wife got into the bathroom at 8 a.m. and my floater was still there,
it's the doghouse for you.
I wouldn't stay married very long. I'd rather cheese off my neighbors, to be honest.
It's interesting. I need to check that fact out because sometimes some people could be startled by a flush toilet and can't go back to bed. I can't remember the premise behind it, but for now, I leave it as speculation and I need to check it out. But
so are we saying, Joseph, that if you love noise from your neighbors, live in an apartment, and if you really can't handle neighbors existing, then either generate enough wealth to live somewhere in the middle of the sticks, or you just got to live with the fact that you're poor and you need to have adjoining walls, or city living, lifestyle choice, whatever. Is that what we're saying ultimately?
No, it is not. Look, economic factors these days is not like back in the days. People are really having it tough. So that example of living in the countryside on your own is 0.1% of those. But does that mean you have no right to your own comfort in your small apartment? No, it doesn't mean so. I think what I'm saying is my conclusion around neighborhoods is be considerate. We are humans, both sides. You as the recipient of the noise or you as the one who is making the noise, both parties need to just think, if I'm on the other side of the coin, how would this make me feel? And it's just back to that good neighborly nature to say, if this was me, this was going too far. And I think that's the way to regulate it. But on the other hand, I also ask that neighbors be tolerant.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big difference is people who have kids and people who don't have kids.
True.
Like I'm not a loud person, but my kids, for some unknown reason to me, they'll decide that running down a hallway screaming is somehow nicer than running down the hallway quietly. And then I get that people who don't have kids are kind of like, that's ridiculous. But it's like also, anyone who has kids, that policing this kind of thing is kind of it's a bit tricky.
I think kids will be kids. Kids have to be kids, and asking them to change that nature is unrealistic. And I wouldn't want to police my kids. Like I always say to a friend of mine, wouldn't you be worried if you walk into the house and your kids are absolutely quiet? Not because they want to, but because they don't want to upset the neighbor downstairs.
Sure.
Then that's asking them to live outside their nature. Kids will make noise. Live with it.
Okay, but then practically, help me out. I'm an old woman living in an apartment, and a family lives above me. And all day, every day, they're like smacking balls across the floor. They're stamping. They're running. Like I'm just trying to have a little siesta because I'm tired.
Yeah.
And every day, it's an onslaught of a family above me. What do I do? Like in that scenario, does that old granny have the right to complain every day, or does she need to learn to live with it?
Yeah.
or does she just pray for new neighbors? Like, what's the practical solution?
It's one of those things that is neither black and white. You know, I empathize with the granny. It shouldn't be. The quality of her life shouldn't diminish because someone else is living their life. I think, I don't know. I really don't know the answer, Dave. It's being considerate. If I'm the old grandpa, a couple of times I will go up to have a conversation with the man or the woman of the house and appeal my case to say, look, I'm struggling here, hoping that it lands on their ears. Not in a confrontational way, but I wouldn't keep short. I wouldn't say, Granny, oh, don't talk about it. I'll say, Granny, go have a conversation. Or invite the parents over to tea and let the kids make their noise and let the parents experience it in your shoes. Maybe that would help. But saying this, humans are difficult to live with.
That is a really strong statement. I have to throw out one story, Joseph, that
Yes.
I hope my ex-neighbor doesn't watch this podcast.
You want to give me the air code again?
So I was doing renovations in a first floor apartment, and my plumbing is not on point.
Yeah.
It's very much a DIY affair. And the mains pipe all of a sudden started spurting out pressured water.
Yeah. Ooh.
And I panicked, and I was trying to run outside and switch it off from the outside.
Yeah.
Didn't manage to do it. Took me like 20 minutes before I got it under control. At that stage, there was like 2 inches of water in the whole apartment.
It's all
And
going to soak in.
I am freaking out. And this gentleman, this very nice old gentleman, had water dripping down his light bulb.
Oh, man.
And he just very politely came up, and I had just been freaked out and panicking.
Yeah.
And he's like, David, there seems to be water dripping down my light bulb. And I was like, yeah, I'm so sorry. Had a bit of a leak. It's under control now. I thought he would have had water running down his walls, but
Yeah.
I don't know how that didn't happen.
Oh.
And he was like, well, as long as it's sorted, then that's okay.
Oh, man. Bless him.
So courteous, you
Bless
know, no shouting at me,
Bless
nothing.
him, yeah.
And I was just like, oh man, like he had a right to get proper annoyed with me.
But he's an exception, David.
Right. I should ask him,
yeah.
does he want to be my neighbor
Look,
again?
a man like that is not the norm. I must tell you. He must be an angel. You know.
Possibly so.
Possibly, yeah.
So it's been a really interesting conversation, because what it highlights for me is that there's two sides of the story from each neighbor's perspective. Some neighbors have certain expectations that others don't.
Yeah.
And there's no rule book on this.
Well, you could find guidelines. I have one guideline. Be at peace with all men. The book good says so. Strive to be at peace with all men. It doesn't mean all men, including your neighbors, want to be at peace with you. But your default position should be to seek out the path of peace. That's my own rule book, you know. And I recommend it to anyone who has a neighbor from hell or a neighbor from heaven. Just strive to be at peace with all men, and then you sleep easy.
I don't think we can end on any better tone than that. Joseph, what is our topic next time that our listeners can write in about, share their opinions, drop us voice notes? We want to hear your opinions, perspectives. We want to engage you in the conversation.
So the topic next week is about assets. And the asset class we're talking about is cryptos. What do you think around storing assets and playing in the crypto market? And that is an interesting topic that we'd like to explore next week. So as David said, we welcome all your opinion, your suggestion, your experience. If you've thrived in it, if you've got your hands burnt in it, and maybe your predictions about the future of the whole crypto universe. Is it going to take over traditional currencies? Welcome to The Definition, where it is neither black or white.
See you next week.